Thank you for joining me on my channel. This is about fragrance and styles and fashion and so much more. Stay tuned. I'll tell you about Creed Aventus, my thoughts, perspectives, and point score on this amazing fragrance. So be sure to subscribe to this channel and please give a like. Thank you for joining me today. I do appreciate it. I have a great love for fragrance and something I think is really a haunting characteristic, something that I lean on to, I think, find comfort, but also find luxury in as well. So I score a fragrance in several ways. That is the actual fragrance in terms of a number, so that it compares and contrasts with maybe other fragrances that I've reviewed. I keep this for myself personally, so I have a ton of notes that I've taken over time in my database on fragrance and fragrances in terms of, where do they land in terms of other fragrance characterization? What are some things that, leap out to me that make either a buy decision or never buy it again decision? There are many things that go into that. And also I'm going to point out that when you're going through fragrances, you might have a change of heart, a metanoia, if you will, fundamental change of heart, the Greek word. So from the first time I've smelled it to this very moment that I very much appreciated. There's another category where I feel maybe at the time I very much, enjoyed that experience, but to me that either it's too singular, it's less complex, or perhaps it's something that I don't really care for any longer. One category that I used to find very alluring and exciting was the gourmand characterization. There are a lot of gourmand fragrances out there that are going to really talk about or really reference or have a central characterization or maybe a chord of notes that are going to represent the food note. And to me, I think that is not very exciting. It's also that when I smell fragrances like that, there's a new world versus, say, old world fragrances. Think of France as opposed to, say, the United States, where you do have a lot of that going on. So I definitely look for complex notes. I look for something that's completely distinguishing, or maybe there's a characterization of attraction. And that is, of course, what it's meant to be. So that's no surprise there. So I definitely find a desire to have a fragrance that is really exciting. When I think of Creed, people talk about this as a niche fragrance. I think it's an overused term. It's a bit of a cliche because in today's world, yes, there are mass marketed fragrances and they're not in that quote unquote niche category. I definitely point this out as being ultra luxury fragrances. And so that really encompasses what a niche fragrance is defined as being, such as high quality material, expensive, limited production, and I think evocative and leaving a pleasant sillage. And I think these are elements that build into a fragrance that is a much more fundamentally important fragrance, one where it comes to the marketplace and is serious with their material and their master perfumer putting together a fragrance that is ultimately compelling and something that should always be compelling in my opinion. The next thing I'm going to talk about is batch variation. There's a lot of topical matter on batch variation. I'll talk about this in a moment. This is a tester 3 that you can select from Aventus. Now, there is a lot of video and a lot of talk about that. There's things on, just articles that people have written about the batch variation. And I view it this way. There's a bit of variation, but I don't think it's remarkable. So, you could hear someone say, Creed is not what it used to be. And I would disagree with that. I think it's always been the desire of the house. And I think it's really a quality product. And it's an expensive product, no doubt. But it's one where I don't think the brand itself is saying, hey, let's create something that's going to be not as exciting as last year. Or let's, reduce some expenses. I don't think that's actually what occurs. I think there is a variation, just like wine. I do wine reviews. I'll put more information on my wine reviews up here or down below. You can check them out. But again, back to topic. This is about, I think, fragrance in terms of variation. I'd rather have something that has a master perfumer who's making this. I like that idea that a master perfumer is assembling this, bringing the raw materials together, making the accord, and then bringing this to the elevation of fragrance, the specific fragrance intended to the marketplace. Now, I think the variation is important because it shows me that there is something slightly different from the year before. And I think of wine, every single vintage, that's why wine is vintage, right? And that's because, maybe 2020 is going to be very different than 2016. And even from that release date to, time in the bottle is going to vary as well. So I do like the idea of variation. I do believe there's variation, but I do believe that it is very, very minute. And so I think what really is important here is that I think people might be smelling different Aventus products. If you're smelling Creed Aventus versus Creed Aventus cologne, there's a variation. Maybe you're at a fragrance counter and you just pick up the gray bottle versus the black bottle, and you really get the idea that that is only one Aventus. You might go away thinking there's a variation from what you remembered smelling before, because I don't think people are going to remember, was it this package or was it the other package? And that is coming to play. So I definitely think distinction in terms of brand positioning should be maybe Aventus, Creed Aventus, and Aventus for her. I would actually, if I were the creative director, I'd probably strike out Aventus cologne. And of course, that's controversial as well. So I'll leave that where it is, but I do not believe batch variation is that significant at this house and other houses as well. What I find fascinating about Creed is their accord. Smelling, say, a house like Penhaligon, you smell one Penhaligons, it doesn't mean that every single fragrance is going to be exactly similar to the other. In fact, they're very, very different. But there's some familiarity in smelling a fragrance from a house like that or another house and saying, these are all coming from the same house. I do find excitement with that. So one thing I definitely want to talk about is the discovery program that they have. And in my opinion, it's expensive. I have a love-hate relationship, not just with Creed's discovery boxes, but all producers' discovery, because I think there's things that I take away from it that I don't find as compelling. So it's $35. You get a selection of 3 different Creed fragrances, with the exception of Viking. This is Virgin Island water, of course, Aventus, and Silver Mountain water. And so when I think of this $35 purchase, super small. And if I were actually, smelling this for the first time, I may not get this bottle. And that's because I think this is a different delivery in terms of the quantity you get on your skin. And I think it's something you're going to be maybe not be compelled to buy. If you smelled the product before, I think people buy this because they want to buy it, but they, obviously it's expensive. You can only get one per, so you can't get 3 Aventus. That's one the drawbacks that you can't get from this program itself. And so very small selection. It's something that, maybe, the love-hate is, I definitely appreciate Virgin Island water and Aventus, of course. I less appreciate Silver Mountain water, and that's because I definitely put these on at the store. I don't put it on a testing paper, testing strip, because I want it on my skin. How's it going to, what's a sillage? What is the experience that I'm going to take away from it? Now, when you are smelling, a fragrance on your skin from a fragrance counter, and yes, I get Creed's not sold everywhere, but definitely sample it on your skin to see if it is really what you want. So, smelling this and putting this on my skin, it was one that was very easy to say, yes, I very much enjoy this. It's a large pour, and that's actually part of the experience, and it leaves a fantastic experience in the air itself as well as on my skin. So just put some on your skin. And I know that sometimes that's frowned upon at a fragrance counter. There's no substitute except to putting this on your skin itself. And so maybe you're not going to be trying on 24 fragrances at one time, but definitely try on 1 or 2 from Creed when you're at the counter. And that way you can make that decision. I would actually say, I would avoid buying this because you can put the $35 to this. Yes, it's an expensive product, but I think good fragrances are expensive. So I do enjoy the copy on the back. I think it's, put a picture here and you can see the back as well. And, one thing I think is really nice is you can go to the website and see, and I'll put more information down below so you can look at that. So you get some of the, published notes, the top, middle, and base notes. So these essences, flower, absolutes, spices, woods, and hesperidia, are picked, sorted, and selected each year by our creative perfumer, Olivier Creed. They are natural, just like our iris and vanilla infusions. So this is a nice bit of copy. I get more perspectives. I know who the master perfumer is, obviously a member of the Creed family. So what we hear often, probably the only word we hear, is pineapple. And yes, I get there's a distinctive note that people take away from it, but I'm going to say it's the assembly of all these notes and materials that make Creed Aventus distinct. So the top note on their published website is pineapple, bergamot, black currant leaves, apple. The middle notes are birch, pink berries, patchouli, jasmine. The base note is ambergris, sandalwood, oak moss, and vanilla. So these are the published notes, but I definitely say there's an alchemy that goes along with this, right? You're not going to necessarily pick out those specific characterization, because it's the assembly of this coming together that creates something different that only Creed, for example, can come to the marketplace. I've heard people say there's a substitute for Creed or a substitute for Creed Aventus, and there really isn't. There's one singular creation, and then if you buy something that's supposed to be similar, it's not going to be that satisfying. You're always going to have in the back of your mind, this isn't Creed Aventus, and there is really no substitute for that. The master perfumer knows how they created this, and no one else does. Maybe in some houses it is known by several people, but the idea is that very few people, if only one person, knows that. So from this I get, they're not just pineapple. Pineapple I think is kind of a notation of cheapness and sweetness, that I don't think this fragrance really is just that. It's other notations of other tropical fruit notes, of passion fruit, star fruit notes, in addition to pineapple, but also some white fruit notes of, I would say, heirloom apple and common pear are really evident there. Beautiful, fresh split wood, not tried, not toasted. Also Atama forest, white floral notes of gardenia and jasmine. Amber is very present, but it's not so muscular that it's taking away other characterization of the fragrance itself. And earthen notes such as freshly fallen bay leaves and soft suede. Additionally, some white peppercorn, and I would definitely get some cardamom notation on this. So I love the cardamom notation as well as white peppercorn. So this all comes together to make a very distinctive, beautiful, and haunting fragrance. I wear this in the daytime and the nighttime. I don't wear all fragrances throughout the day. I will change over a period of time. So I think fragrance is a beauty of understanding how you bring this together, because it's evocative. It's something that maybe harkens back to memories past, or maybe optimism for the future. Yes, I know those are really, I would say, words that are very elevated, but why do we buy fragrance? So what does this mean to me? It means that transportive period of time of elegant fragrance making in the 1940s and 50s. It really definitely has that characterization that is really, I would say, a sense of confidence. When you put ambergris or musk characterization, it's very different than, say, New World producers who tend to shy away from that. And I think there's something very, very compelling about that, about this characterization and material set. So this is beautifully compelling, luxuriant, distinct, exciting, evocative, transportive, as well as enduring and hope for the future, as well as promise for the future. Yes, elevated words, but this is what this brand means to me. I think it's absolutely, delightful daytime, evening fragrance, easy to do, one that I've not gotten tired of since its debut, and one that I wear constantly. This is compelling, distinct, and complex. That's what makes people go back to this. Would I buy this again? Absolutely, yes. So this is a 98-point fragrance out of 100 points. More information on the producer down below. Questions and comments, please give a like to this video, subscribe to this channel, and more to come. Yes, I know I haven't published in a while, but I'm going to be doing more fragrance reviews, and I'm actually going to talk about one of the fragrances in this set. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you very soon.